Okay, I've made a couple of videos today. Um, just a second one. This one, I'm going to talk about prophecy. You're going to have to listen to me a little bit about explaining it, how it happens to me. And I wouldn't call myself a prophet, but I do get some private revelations, is how I would say it, or messages. But there's different ways that things come to you. So I see a lot of people, I don't know, that guy Biggs or something, about the bullet going by Trump's right ear. And, people saying, oh, he's a prophet, he's not a prophet. And people have all kinds of things to say. And so it's real simple. Ever since, I'm going to explain how things happened to me. Ever since I was a young teenager, I've been having premonitions and kind of odd things happening to me, and I've kind of always verified them with God, with Jesus Christ. And so the first thing that happened to me when I was like 8 years old, I was hit by a car, and not to go over the whole story, but I had a near-death experience. Someone revived me and in the road, and whatever. And but I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But I did speak to God, had a body experience, and I promised I would be good. So I try never to lie or never to make things up. I'm not perfect. I'm just a man. I'm married. I have 4 children. I'm married. Be 49 years in August. I got married very young. I'm 69 years old. So the first thing that happened to me was I woke up in a dream and yelled out my grandfather's name and said, "Grandpa's dead." Like, not remember dreaming it or anything, just sat up in the middle of the night and said that out loud. My grandfather was not sick. 2 days later, he went into the hospital and he passed away. And I thought, oh, that's unusual, kind of coincidental. I'm like, wow. Because when it happened, I thought, that's a really dumb thing to say. And where did that come from? Um, So I can't go over all the religious experiences that I've had. I've had a white light glowing in my room, which I seen as Jesus. I don't remember if I had a conversation or not, but I remember saying, I'm not ready yet. That's the only thing I remember about that. And that was when I was about 20 years old. I did always have these little, I don't know, like something that might happen in the very near future, even an hour ahead of time sometimes, an exact event, and it would play out that way. But there's other things that go along with outside of visions and premonitions of having a vision of a picture of something, of how it's going to play out, or if it might play out. This is the thing that people don't understand. So I always like to use the story of Jonah when he went to Nineveh and he prophesied that God would destroy the city in 40 days. Now, God did not destroy that city. So did the people of Nineveh, or a good portion of them, or part of them, think that Jonah was a false prophet, and because his prophecy didn't come true. So this is not how God works. And God works in everyone. It's like those inklings you get to, like Trump, turn your head and something misses you. In that case, a bullet just nicks you. Um, you don't know that that's God doing that to you, but it is. So everything that happens for a reason. So I'm just of an average intelligence. I've become what you call very intuitive. So a lot of times I can be watching a movie, I could be reading, I could be sitting just daydreaming or reading something, and a knowing, I call it a knowing, something, a puzzle piece will put together. So people would call that seeing patterns, I guess, being able to put patterns together. Um, but really, that's from God, from Jesus. So I've done a lot of praying on this. In the beginning, through my teens and through my 20s and through my 30s, I just put them all off as coincidence and kind of funny, and thought maybe I was a little psychic or something and just didn't develop the ability because I had no desire to do that. I never played with tarot cards or anything like that. And I just thought, eh, it's just something that happens to everybody. Kind of like when you're thinking of someone and the phone rings and it's that person. Hey, I was just thinking of you. So it can be as simple as that. Or I'm watching something or reading something, and something from the Bible becomes clearer to me that I had read in the Bible or that I heard in church, or something about somebody. I had also a thing. I had a, I guess, I'm a Catholic, but I had a kind of a born again experience in the early 90s, at an apparition site. And a lot of people are not Catholic. Are going to be, oh, he's a Catholic, he's going to hell, and they don't believe, they don't know, was the devil talking to him or whatever. Well, the devil doesn't like Jesus' name, and he certainly doesn't like to mess with people who pray. He messes with people who do a lot of good, and I spent a good portion of my life doing as much good as I can. I never had a lot of means, but I try to help people, and I let people take advantage of me quite a bit. I'm kind of that kind of person. So I believe in love. Jesus gave us two commandments. One is to love the God the Father and don't worship any other gods or idols, and and even above your family. And to second commandment, Jesus gave us, which is always misquoted for some reason, but he gave us the commandment as to love one another as I have loved you, or love your neighbor as I have loved you, which means as Jesus has loved us. And Jesus had perfect love, loved us so much that he gave his life for us, for our sins, and for us. And Jesus went around just healing and helping people. And that's what his main concern in life was. That's not what our main concerns in life are. We're not willing to die for other people. We're not willing to give up what we have to other people. And so we're imperfect. So comes along with how we perceive things. So if I get a vision, which is a clear picture in my head, in my mind's eye, like a daydream almost, but I've always said the difference in those visions and the daydreams, or the visions don't go away, the daydreams definitely go away. And so there's that thought pattern of things. And then there's the knowings, and somehow you just know things. They come to you, and you learn them, and you understand better. Or you can see how events are progressing more easily. It's kind of like putting a puzzle together. So sometimes you'll see I made some videos on my Rumble channel. It's Rumble with Tony. You'll see that I had said, this is me putting puzzle pieces together. And that's me, and that's not necessarily a vision. And when I have a vision, I will say it's a vision. So I'm going to try and give some examples of things that happened to me. Okay, first thing was I noticed that these things were progressing in me, or it's becoming more frequent and more worldly, which they were not in the beginning. They were not very worldly. They were just common things about people. So things that after I had the awakening in 91 and got very involved in the Catholic faith, and praying a lot, and became a lay Carmelite, third order lay Carmelite in the lay order. Um, I started to have some supernatural things happening to me. Um, you're not supposed to ask for a sign, but when things like that are happening to you, it's just human nature, I think, to ask for a sign. So the first sign I asked for is when I went to the apparition site where the Virgin Mary was appearing, was on the way there. I said to God, if this is real, let me have someone give me a set of rosary beads. Give me a set of rosary beads. I had no rosary beads. I was not going to church at all. I didn't even know how to say the rosary. And I went, to shorten the story, I went to the apparition site, and everyone was praying the rosary, and it was kind of beautiful. It was about 500-600 people there, maybe. And then we had to walk 2 miles to get there because the town had an ordinance that you couldn't park there. So I walked back the 2 miles to this shopping center parking lot where everyone was parked, about 2 miles. And I started talking to some people because I'm trying to find out, if this is real. I mean, during the apparition time and I was there, people were flashing lights, but I was like standing way in the back. I don't like to be like crowded, and I wasn't going to force my way up into the front or whatever. And I was in the back. It was a very large yard at a man's house. And so I'm asking, and I'm talking to these 3 or 4 people. There's a man standing on my right. There's a woman there. There's another man. A couple, like 3 or 4 people, 5 people maybe. I don't remember exactly. And all of a sudden, one of the men says to me, "Tony, you dropped your rosary beads." I look down as I'm standing there, and between my feet is a pair of rosary beads. Now, there's no way I could have walked up to that and actually stepped there and not seen them. But I'm so honest, and I looked down and I said, "Well, they're not mine." And the guy next to me swooped them up. But I couldn't help after that happened to think, did Jesus, and God give me a pair of rosary beads that I asked for? That's pretty coincidental. So I didn't get those rosary beads. And so I had a son who had a seizure disorder, and I brought him there for a healing. He was 2 years old, under 2 years old, just about 2 years old. And he was on medication. We kept him on the anti-seizure medications. He was having grand mal seizures. And then they had a healing mass in another town. They had a priest come from Ireland. And so I said the same thing. If this healing is true, I still really wasn't going back to church, and took my wife and my kids. My son was sick. And it was so busy, the church. And I was like, I'm in the back person. I'm outside, actually, of the church during the mass and everything, the healing mass. But after the healing mass, you get to go up and the priest would bless you. But I said the same thing. If this is real, give me a set of rosary beads. And so as my 2-year-old, after it was we got the blessing, we were standing off to the side. And we were just standing there, and people were, leaving the church and whatever. And all of a sudden, a man walks over to me, and he gives me a set of rosary beads. And he says they're made from the coffee beans of Medjugorje, which is an apparition site in Medjugorje. I don't actually know the name of the city. But the visionary, the guy who was having the apparitions, started having them after he came back from Medjugorje, which I found out later. I also went and had this strong desire to look for religious stuff. And I started, especially about Carmel and the brown scapular. And I went to a religious store, and there was an ex-nun. And in about 67, 68, I forget what year, they changed the Vatican to the Latin Mass, to the vernacular, to the Vatican II Mass. So I had never been to a Vatican II Mass. I had made my communion and confirmation things before that. So a lot of nuns and priests dropped out when Vatican II started. They didn't like it. Actually, a little bit of an incorrect Mass. her service. And so I was talking to her, and I bought a couple of statues of saints, specifically Padre Pio and the Virgin Mary. And, I did by St. Joseph's statue, and just statues, they bring you to mind of the person's life. Why I picked a Padre Pio statue, I don't really know. It was just caught my eye when I was in the store. But I was speaking to this woman, I got to know her, and I was buying some books and reading some of the writings of the saints, which are very um, worth reading. And I don't want to make this way too long because no one's going to sit and keep listening to my story. I asked her if I could speak to a priest, if she knew a priest I could speak to, because I wasn't going back to church yet, but I was going to these apparitions, and they were once a month, and I was going every month. I had a strong desire to do that. I didn't understand it. It was confusing me. So she says, oh, you can speak to this priest over here. And, he made videos, religious videos about the Catholic faith and saints and stuff. And I went to his place unannounced, and I asked him about the apparitions that I was going to, and he told me, I can't really say because the church didn't give permission, but he kind of let me know that, yeah, they were real. And then I asked him about the brown scapular, and he pulled out his brown scapular. And then I went to confession, and I started going to church. I did confession right there with him, and I started going to church. As soon as I go to church, I'm there maybe 2 or 3 masses, and they're starting a Lake Carmelite community in that Catholic parish. I was in my neighborhood, and I went to those meetings and became a Lake Carmelite. And then I found out that other people who went to these apparitions that I went to also became Carmelites, and that really, like wow. The town stopped the people from going to those apparitions, so we stopped going to them, but I became a CCD teacher and was very involved in the church for quite a while. But things in my life started going bad. And I realize now that when you turn to God and when you really start praying and really start living the Christian life, that the devil really attacks you. So my business was attacked by very evil people. And so I kind of lost pretty much everything. But I lost my business, I lost my house. I had my house for 22 years. They really the state came down on me. And it wasn't anything I did wrong. I reported some corruption. Just because I'm naturally, like, right is right and wrong is wrong person. So, visions. Still, all these times, I'm still getting things that I kind of know. In fact, I had the mafia. I know people are going to think I'm crazy, threatening me with the state, Sigma Mafia on me. It sounds crazy, but it's true, because they're laundering money. And I live in New Jersey, and it's still going on today. But I was figuring them out, everything that they were doing to me to put me out of business. So much so that one of the mafia guys called me up, and he's like, how are you figuring this out all the time? And, so you could say, well, that's just psychic stuff or whatever. To me, it was always from God. I even tried to learn more about see if I was psychic or whatever. But that didn't really get me anywhere. So I'm going to move all the way up out of the 90s and the late 90s and the early 2000s, the mid, 2005 or so. I'm going to move up to around when Trump was running. I started a car dealership, and I was running a car dealership. And of course, you have a lot of time to sit down in that business when no customers are coming in, or you're sitting there. I was on the computer watching YouTube videos and things like that. And, so I got a little bit more tuned to what was going on in the world. So that's what I was paying attention to. And then I started, talking to a friend of mine. People come in your car dealership, they're friends, people you buy from and whatnot. And I started talking to people, and one friend in particular, and I started telling them things that I see that are going to happen. and they started happening. So then I was like very confused, and I'm like, is this really from God? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't understand. So my friend came in, and I said to him, and he's not a religious person at all. And I said to him, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I'm getting these visions, and they're coming true, like about the world, because I had never really done worldly events or anything before, like thought of visions and that stuff. And he said, maybe God has a plan for you. So I said, I don't know. So I thought about it for a day. The next night, I was at the lot, and I was closed, and I was just staying on the computer. I didn't go home yet. I had a Catholic prayer page that Facebook took from me, but at any rate, I was working on the Catholic prayer page, and then I was sitting there and I was thinking, and I said, God, I'm praying to you, asking Jesus, listen, if this is really from you, God, I'm going to go outside and you show me a meteor. But I had seen meteors a lot, and especially I would be outside in my yard at night praying the rosary, and I would see little meteors, little tiny white balls fly by me, not too far away from me. As I called them meteors, I just figured they're meteors. So I said, God, and I know you're not supposed to ask for a sign, but I'm going to go outside and pray, and if this is from you, God, show me a red meteor, like a real like meteor. And so I went outside into my car lot and I started praying. And as I was praying and I was looking up, I prayed. I stayed out there maybe 5, 10 minutes and nothing. So I said, oh, actually felt relieved because some of the things you see are not really nice. So I went back in my office and I sat down in my chair. And as soon as I sat down, the thought popped in my head, Tony, you didn't wait long enough. I get back up. I walk across my office. I open up the door to go outside. I open the door. I step 2 steps outside. And what do you think I see? A giant red meteor go by. What are the odds? It's impossible. I'm like, no way. No way did that just happen. No way. So I got the rosary bead things 2 times, and I got the red meteor. And I'm like, I'm not asking God for anything else anymore. But now I started to thinking that this stuff is real. So then I started having some predictions, but I didn't really do much about it. Now, in the 2020 election, um, I started to get, well, I started to get some more things and accepting it more, meaning telling other people things, especially my one friend who came in that time. And now he started asking me all the time, what do you see going to happen? And, and I'm pretty much between being able to be intuitive and the things that I was seeing they were coming true, a lot of them. Now I did misinterpret, so I can say this. So when you see a vision, sometimes it doesn't make sense. I saw a vision of Hillary Clinton getting arrested, and then I saw a leap year, and I saw that they have to keep her alive because she has evidence that they need, that they're going to try and kill her. They have to keep her alive. So I interpret that vision as a leap year as February 29th. That's me. That's leap years, February 29th. So I tell people, well, Hillary Clinton's going to get arrested on leap year, and the next year was leap year. So I thought she was going to get arrested that year. Turns out she didn't get arrested. So I said, gee, and that vision's wrong. Like God, like I don't want to give anyone a wrong. I don't want to come on the internet and say this is a vision and it's wrong. I don't. I pray that never happens. And here I am with a kind of a wrong vision. And so then I'm reading and learning stuff. Then all of a sudden I'm reading about Jeffrey Epstein. And guess what the FBI's name of the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein is? Leap year. So that's me misinterpreting what leap year meant in the vision. So I can give you another vision that I have no idea what exactly means. I have a vision, and I'm going to tell you the vision pretty much exactly. The vision is I see a nuclear detonation. Nuclear spelt wrong. There's no E in nuclear. And that starts off World War III. It's a detonation. So I said it wrong. Oh my goodness. The vision was I smell a nuclear detonation. And nuclear was spelt wrong. It stood out to me. So this isn't a vision. That's the vision. That's it. That's the vision. I smell a nuclear detonation. So I can kind of summarize some things, and the war in Ukraine was just ready to start when I had that vision. So I thought, because the Russians were taking over Chernobyl, so I thought, wow, they're going to blow up Chernobyl, and that's going to start a nuclear conflict. That's me thinking. I don't know. The vision was I smell a nuclear detonation. I kind of asked a lot of people, friends, like, well, who spells nuclear without an E? What language? And I couldn't find that. And the other thing is, what does I smell a nuclear detonation mean? So that's a strange vision, but that definitely was a vision. So I don't know if somebody knows what that means. Maybe they can tell me. I also saw a vision where I seen 4 nukes going off in the United States. And then I saw the number 7 nukes. So I couldn't understand it. The only other thing that came to me was Chicago. But I had assumed that it was in the East Coast because I saw them going over my head, over my house. And I live right by the ocean in New Jersey. So I thought, well, what is 4 and what is 7? How many nukes did I see explode in the United States? So it took a couple of years, actually, for me to think I figured it out. And it's me just thinking. I'm thinking 4 nukes with 7 warheads each. And that's what I'm thinking. Now, I don't know what it means. Maybe it was 4 on the East Coast and 3 on the West Coast. I don't know. Or 3 somewhere else, or I don't know. You know? So I could tell you the vision was I saw 4 nukes. And I actually saw them and leaving the streak line in a row, going actually directly over my house is how I saw them. A lot of times I don't see things that way. One of the first visions I had was I was in a small airplane and I was flying it. Now, it's not me. I don't fly an airplane. It can't be me, but I see me. And I see me going along the Route 80 west towards this airport not far from the George Washington Bridge in Teterboro, New Jersey, Teterboro Airport. And a landing there. That's where I'm headed. So I can see the west way ahead of me. I'm up in an airplane. I look down at the ground and I see the cars on the highway. They're in traffic. And it's a hot day. I see a light blue flame coming off the cars. A very pale light blue flame. But the people don't notice that their car is on a light blue flame on it. They're just sitting there. In fact, one guy has his arm out the window and there's the light blue flame on his arm, but he doesn't notice it. And so I'm looking at this picture as I'm flying this plane, and I'm thinking that's so odd, and then I look up and I look straight ahead and I see the sky on fire, like rolling flames of fireballs of fire. The whole sky is on fire. It's not a nuclear explosion. The sky is on fire. And then was a sense of doom and a vision. And that was one of the first visions I had, and I would put that in the early 2000s of a worldly vision, which I don't have a lot of worldly visions back then, but I did have that vision. I still don't know. I saw the sky on fire. I just can tell you that. And it was a light blue flame at first. The next thing that I can't explain is I kept seeing who I identified as, although he didn't say it in my mind's eye, St. Michael the Archangel. And he had his back to me, and he was standing in front of me, but with his back to me, but a fair distance in front of me, maybe 20 feet or so in front of me. And every now and then he would just turn his head back and look at me, and then for a second, and then look straight ahead again. And this was going on for a couple of weeks. I kept seeing St. Michael the Archangel standing in front of me. So I asked a priest friend of mine, do you know what that could possibly mean? And he said, well, maybe he's guarding you in front of you. Maybe it's not, because I was taking it as St. Michael the Archangel had his back to me. I don't know why he kept turning his head looking at me. But then after the priest had told me that, maybe, and I thought about it, I didn't know. And then all of a sudden, still having that. And then one vision one day, which was the last vision, St. Michael was standing there, and he was in like a white garb, like kind of almost like a Roman dress, like with a thing over his shoulder, like the goldish thing over his shoulder in white. And anyway, then he turned this time and he looked at me, and he came and approached me, and he made the sign of the cross on my forehead, and with blood, with the blood of Jesus. And I was like, whoa, what does that mean? Like, what is that? And I could still see him. He went back to where he was. Then and as I'm thinking in my mind, what is this? He turns again. And this time he comes back and he does it again. And he makes the sign of the cross. Now when I make the sign of the cross on my head, he made like a little, like your thumb, like a little click off the edge, like a little tip down, very fine, little, like his piece, like the end of his thumb. And then I'm like, wow, he did that twice. Like, what does that mean? Then he came again a third time, as I'm still contemplating in my mind, what does this mean? And he did it again. The third time he made the sign of the cross on my forehead. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And every person I've asked does not know what that means. To this day, I don't know what that means. And it's over a year ago that this happened to me. And if anyone has any clues what that means, they can let me know. I couldn't tell if it was bad or good, which is also another weird thing, but that's a vision. Sometimes they come with meanings, and sometimes the meaning might not come till later on, or I don't really know. I can only speculate, and I don't want to speculate on that specific vision. So other odd things that happened to me. So remember I told you I bought a St. Padre Pio statue. So I'm trying to explain, and if you have time to listen to me, how visions happen and how things are coincident, how you pay attention to the coincidences. And that's how you talk to God and see God. So it's not like, oh, he said this is going to happen and it doesn't happen. So when I tell you like I smell a nuclear detonation was, also God sometimes tells you visions or gives you visions so that you tell people so that it gets out there a little bit so that the event does not happen. So that people pray a little bit and turn back to God and stop and change their ways and become more godly. And God will accept their sacrifices and their repentance, and will spare them that specific thing that's going to happen. So like Jonah with Nineveh, sometimes God, for whatever reason, things that evil does or whatever, God may make something worse or change it, or not let that happen at all and have something else happen. So there's an apparition in the Catholic faith called Garabandal. It happened in Garabandal, Spain, and there was 4 girls that the Virgin Mary appeared to. So I don't know much about Garabandal. I just heard about it and 4 girls. I watched maybe 1 or 2 videos about it. Not really very explanatory. But the lead girl's name was Conchita. So as I was a lay Carmelite, it just so happens that one of the lay Carmelites in my parish knew the woman who was connected, who sponsored Conchita to come to the United States. So Conchita sponsor invited us to Conchita's house. So we went to Conchita from Garabandal's house. Conchita wasn't home, and at first, and she had a big room in the back of her house filled with relics and statues like I've never seen before. But then shortly thereafter, Conchita came home. And as she started telling us a story about, she knew Padre Pio. Padre Pio believed in the apparitions of Garabandal, and by now he was a saint. When I first bought his statue, he was just Blessed Padre Pio. And now he has sainthood. He's Saint Padre Pio. And she knew Padre Pio, and she talked about it. So this is where it gets a little bit strange. She pulls out Padre Pio's burials, like a scarf, a brown scarf from his burial, which they wear to Carmelite, brown scarf. That was his burial scarf that his secretary, Padre Pio's secretary, had given to her after Padre Pio passed and was buried. It's called a relic. She took it and she put it over my head and she prayed for me. And because I was having all these things with the mafia and stuff happening to me that I spoke about earlier. And so, I thought that was kind of nice, and I felt kind of weird about it, I mean, I'm still kind of new getting back in the faith. And I left there and, and I just always remembered that. And I remember I said earlier I had a Catholic page that Facebook took away from me. It had 600,000 followers. They don't like Catholics and they don't like prayer pages, Facebook. But at any rate, so what happened was I noticed I started reading about Padre Pio a little bit, St. Padre Pio, and I found his last name was Forgione. And I had a guy who was dropping off cars in my car dealership in the trailer, and his last name was Forgione. But every time I went to go talk to him, he would split out really quick. He'd be gone, bang. And so one day, as I was sitting at my computer, I seen him. I heard the car dropping off the trailer. I said, "Oh, he's here." I ran outside. I was so excited and caught me such off guard because he always just jumped in and sped off. And I said to him, "You're Forgione. Are you related to a saint?" I couldn't even think of St. Padre Pio's name because I was kind of excited and ran out there. And he said, "Yeah, Padre Pio, St. Padre Pio." With a grin on his face, he said he's my mother's cousin, which makes him his second cousin. So I'm like, wow. He goes, "It's all true, with a smile on his face. And then he got in his truck and he drove away, leaving me kind of dumbfounded there. I went back in my office and I sat at my desk and I looked on my Catholic page, which was open at the time. And I didn't even realize, I looked at the date. It was September 23rd. That's St. Padre Pio's feast day. So not only did I also meet Conchita from Garabandal and get a blessing from her, which is just like a blessing from a lay person, but a person who the Virgin Mary spoke to, even though it's not church approved. A lot of people believe in Garabandal. She put Padre Pio's scarf over my head, and then I meet Padre Pio's second cousin on the feast day of St. Padre Pio. Even more yet, crazy to this story, and you're not even going to believe me, is that Padre Pio's second cousin was born on September 23rd. So the day I approached him was his birthday, which I didn't know at that time, but I found out later because I became a little bit of acquaintance friends with him. So to make matters even icing on the cake, I'm reading about Padre Pio's secretary, which is the one who gave Conchita Padre Pio's scarf. And his name is Enzo Bertani. It's the same last name as me. And I look where he's from in Italy, and that's the area that the Bertanis are from in Italy. So, Enzo Bertani gave Conchita Padre Pio's burial scarf. She put it over my head and prayed for me with it. I come back. I meet Padre Pio's second cousin, St. Padre Pio's second cousin, on the feast day of St. Padre Pio. And the secretary, Enzo Bertani, is the same. Could be a relative of mine. Okay, so back to the vision thing. The white lights flashing by me, which I assumed are meteorites, I don't believe they were meteors. I think they were angels, little balls of light. The last one I saw, which is about 2 years ago now, they kind of would pop when they would go by me, and they would just like pop and disappear. One popped where I could feel the percussion in my ear in the front of my house while I was praying, and then in my backyard, in my yard, one popped right above my head as I watched it come over, and it was very low to my head. I'm going to say, because I did a lot of height work, I'm going to say it was maybe less than 20 feet above me, and it popped, and I could feel it over my head. I don't get the white lights anymore. I don't get many visions right now anymore, by the way. But I had a vision of World War III, and I told you about the 4 nukes part I left out is a few months later, maybe 6 months, 7 months later, I read an article from Putin says, I only need 4 nuclear weapons to defeat the United States. And I thought, wow, that's a coincidence, and you can look that up. I'm like, really? I mean, I saw 4 nukes coming in, and that would be in line with, 4 nukes might not destroy the United States, but 4 nukes with 7 warheads each definitely would. And the United States surrendering. Now, there's an out for all of this, and so if anyone's read if you're Catholic, if you're not, I would look up Fatima, The Third Secret of Fatima. I would listen to Art Bell's 1998 when he interviews Father Malachi Martin, who read The Third Secret of Fatima. The Catholic Church has hidden the real truth of the Fatima secret. But what I saw, outside of what was released already in the Fatima secret and what is known, is the progression of the war. So the progression comes through Eastern Europe and into Italy and the Vatican falls. I saw a black flag on the roof of the Vatican, and they take the chair Peter out and hold it as a trophy, as they're defeating Christianity. I see troops in there, but a lot of Islamic. And when that happens, there's civil unrest in Rome, rioting and civil unrest, and there's fighting, and and that happens. In England, I see Russian soldiers in England, northern England, and I see England starting um, the war with the Third World War in a way where it's war, it's like nukes war. And King Charles is not as timid as people think. Another vision I can tell you that I had. It's the third three. I'll finish the World War III. You're going to see through Kiev and Russia coming down through Eastern Europe and through the Slavic nations and, and down into Italy, the problems, and in England. You're going to see China move to Taiwan and move eastward. Westward. Well, eastward to Japan and westward. The Middle East is going to be Israel and Iran starting, and this everybody already knows. I mean, that's a possibility. So with World War III will start in three places, and Europe will be first, and then the United States, Canada, and stuff. So visions, it doesn't have to be that way, because if the Fatima prophecy, there is a way out, and that's the Pope has to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, which has been attempted 2 or 3 times, but not completed correctly. As far as Pope Francis, I was asking God if Pope Francis was a real pope, because there's some stuff about Pope Francis not being a legitimate pope. And so the answer God gave me was this. So it's a little cryptic. So when you become a lay Carmelite, you pick a Carmelite name, just like the Pope picked. His name is Bergoglio, but he picked Pope Francis, right? So, my name's Tony. So I had to pick a Carmelite name. So I picked the name of Elijah of Fire and Water. Fire for action, and water for spirituality, obedience to God. And Elijah, who brought fire down from the sky as an actions for God. So that's my Carmelite name, my lay Carmelite name, third order lay Carmelite name. So when I prayed to God and asked about Pope Francis, this is my reply from God. Said, you are Elijah of fire and water, but you're not that Elijah. Pope Francis is not that Pope. So what exactly that means, I don't know. I took it as meaning I'm not Elijah from the Bible, but my name is Elijah of fire and water. His name is Pope Francis, but he's not really Pope. But God didn't say that. He said, you are Elijah of fire and water, but you're not that Elijah. And he said that Pope Francis is not that Pope. So that's another vision that I had. Now, things that came to me and are knowings you can see on my video in I would suggest go to Rumble with Tony. I have some prophecy videos there. I do jump around a bit. I kind of go where the spirit leads me. And people will pick things up and skip through the video or not watch it. Um, so I just, talk about things that pop into my mind. And I wanted to talk about visions. So you judge a prophet by his fruits, not if the prophecy comes true, not if you pick words out of it that I took leap year for literally meaning February 29th, leap year, as the time frame, when leap year most likely meant the name of the investigation that she was being arrested for, Hillary Clinton. So that's kind of how they work. So, like, I made a video about the eclipse in one of the secrets of Garabandal, the warning or something. And that's just me thinking and putting pieces together. So that's not a vision. So there's a video on there, and it's totally wrong. I was wrong. But it's not a vision that I had. So when I say vision, I say vision. In that video, you'll hear me say, I'm pretty sure I said this is not a vision. This is me putting pieces of the puzzle together. Because I'm trying to figure out what are the odds that I go see a place where the Virgin Mary is, ask for rosary beads, get them, then go to a healing mass, ask for rosary beads and get them. Somebody gives them to me, and then ask for a fireball, red meteor, and get that. And then meet Conchita at Garabandal. Not only do I meet her, she puts St. Padre Pio's scarf over my head, and it winds up that somebody with the same last name, Padre Pio's secretary, is the one who gave it to her. Then I go back and I meet Padre Pio's second cousin on the feast day of St. Padre Pio. What are the odds? What are the odds? So one last thing. I have sometimes I get visions that are for a particular person. Now, they can accept them or they can disregard them, because I've had people do both. So a priest that I talk to sometimes, very seldom, was saying, Tony, you're very intuitive, because I was being right about a lot of things. I was sending him my messages. So I went outside and I said prayers to God, please don't let me ever give anyone a wrong vision, like something to tell them that God wants them to do or that's going to happen, and it doesn't happen. I don't ever want to be in that happen. I don't want that. And so I'm outside praying, and I'm asking God that, and I'm praying, and I'm sitting there, and then it comes to me. So evangelicals will say the Holy Spirit came to me. Somebody else will say Jesus came to me or whatever. To me, it's God. And it comes to me in my mind that tell Father his name. I'm not going to mention the Father's name. Tell Father, if he has a question for Conchita, he has to ask it. So this priest that I speak to, I have no idea. I'm just giving him my messages. I have no idea if he follows Garabandal or if he believes in Garabandal. I don't know. And Conchita is from Garabandal. So I go, that's a silly message. Like, he's going to think I'm crazy. So I write, God gave me a message for you. It says, if you have a question for Conchita, you have to ask it. And within 10 minutes, and it usually takes a day or two to answer me, but within 10 minutes, he answers me back. He says, I do have a question for Conchita. Well, guess who can get him in touch with Conchita? Yours truly. So I go to the Garabandal webpage on Facebook page, and I know the guy who runs the page. And I say, listen, I have this priest. He has a question. He's a very traditional, good priest. He has a question for Conchita. Can I put you in touch with him? And You can give the message to Conchita and she can answer it or whatever. And so I did that. I never found out what the question was that the priest had for Conchita. But I put them together, but there's a confirmation again. So these confirmations keep coming all the time. They come in a way that sometimes things come true, and that sometimes they're like you get a direct answer. Like, ask that and bang. That's like, what? Really? Or you get a meteor in the sky coming. I don't like having the visions, and I never used to give them out, but in the last 2 years or so, I started making videos about visions of things that I see happening in the world, especially Endgame, where World War III will leave us, and what the plans are. No one looks at the end games. I can give an example. The immigrants are coming into this country. There's 30 or 40 million in the United States, and they're coming into Europe. Eventually, they're going to tell you to take them in to their rooms, their housing. And then when they can't put them in the hotels anymore and whatnot, they're going to move people out and give them their houses. And it's going to create civil unrest. So besides having World War III, we're going to be having civil unrest and another pandemic, which I've been saying for 3 years. And this pandemic will be worse than the first one. And especially that people are shy to the vaccine hesitance. They have that into account, and they will. I see 2 billion dead, and then I don't know next. I don't want to give a time frame. A couple of years, a few years, I don't know. I see 2 billion dead is what I got. So we have King Charles starting World War III. We're fighting. We have pandemics. We have civil unrest. We're most likely going to have an invalid election. Trump will, it seems to me, so here's a vision. Okay, Biden will die in office, and Kamala Harris will not become president. They will make her an offer she can't refuse. A military man will become first vice president, then president. So, in light of how things are happening, and I made this 3 years ago, there's a video on that. I'm putting my own 2 cents in. I think that Biden is going to die if he's not already passed. They're not going to let Kamala Harris run for president or even be president. Is kind of how I saw it. But she might be president until the election. I don't know. But I see that she's not going to be one on the ticket running. I don't see that likely at all. I see them offering her so she can't refuse. I see Trump had to compromise on his VP, and I saw Mike, General Flynn. But then General Flynn, he did not pick. So there's the compromise there. He picked Vance. Here's our problem. Vance, and this is me thinking, so not a vision. Vance is connected to Skull and Bones. Vance is connected to adrenochrome. Vance, all of a sudden, who's a very bright man, turned pro-Trump. It could be my vision. It could be that he's the VP military guy, because he's ex-military, and I say you can find my video on that, my prophecy video on that a military guy is going to take over. I can't see if he's current military or ex-military. That would be but Vance ex-military, and I would see Trump leaving office. And that would make Vance the president. From what I see, my advice would be for Trump to choose someone else, someone he can trust, someone he knows they don't like. And as much as I'm not fond of General Flynn, they don't like General Flynn. They tried to put him in jail. I would say that's a much better choice than Mike Vance, than Vance, J.D. Vance, because it outweighs the gain. Having him will turn into giving them the opportunity to take over. So visions are not always what comes true, and that wasn't a vision I just gave you. The vision I gave you was President Biden dies in office, and this is from 2022 sometime, maybe March. The video's on my Rumble channel. Biden dies in office. They make Kamala Harris an offer she can't refuse. She's not going to be president. And the fellow that takes over as a VP is an ex-military person. World War III is inevitable at this point in time. I think it's an hour long. If anyone stayed to listen to this, you get a special blessing from God. From me. I mean, a blessing from God. Because I bless anyone who stayed and listened to this whole video. May the peace of Jesus be with you always. May you love to learn as Jesus has loved us. I know I don't speak like other people who call themselves prophets or whatever, and I don't call myself a prophet. I may say I'm a sort of a messenger or almost a decoy. It's kind of how I see myself. I'm nothing special, and I can be wrong because a lot of visions are not always clear with me. Maybe with some people they get an angel appearing to them. I did not have a physical angel appear to me. I did not have Jesus appear to me in my mind's eye. I've had St. Michael appear to me, and Jesus appeared to me, and the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to me in my mind's eye, where I see them looking at me, or I never had them speaking to me in a vision. I would just see them, and then I would know what's being said to me or what's being shown to me. I would see it. Sometimes I told you it's just knowings. It's the coincidences. God will show you something. So again, just God bless everyone. And I really, healing for anyone who's sick, I pray that God heals you and that He protects your family and that He opens your eyes if they're closed. to the truth, and that He opens my eyes more to the truth. I don't want to give anyone any wrong information. So God bless. May the peace of Jesus be with you always. Take care.